Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nazareth Podcast, the Catholic parenting podcast created by the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens Catholic Schools. Today on Nazareth, we have a very special guest, Veronica Marrinan, founder of Litany NYC, a Catholic New York City-based clothing company. Veronica is a designer. She is a Catholic creative. She has inspired me and so many other women I know so much with her beautiful designs and her incredible commitment to creating Catholic art. So I am just so excited to have you on, Veronica. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks so much for having me.
The way that we kind of start all of our episodes is with what I like to call a grace and a grapple. I think a grace for this week. This is so funny because as we've been recording these episodes, I feel like every single time I record the last month or so, my grapple is the fact that it's like negative 20 degrees outside.
For real.
But
Oh
my
gosh.
grace today is the fact that it feels like it's like summer. I'm like, whoa. I wore my like cool, fun coat for the first time in weeks instead of my huge duvet blanket style puffer coat. And that was just like so freeing. I feel like a brand new woman. So that was incredible. That's a grace of the day for sure. A grapple. It's such a like both and. Like I'm so grateful for the fact that I have been so busy this week. And I never really want to, I always struggle with like, it's such a classic New York thing when someone asks you how you're doing, you're like, great, busy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's such an identifier, right? We're like, oh yeah, everything's good. I'm just crazy busy. But it's both a struggle, but I am really grateful for it. So maybe that's a cop out of a grapple, but it's been a crazy busy week. But like each thing that is on my calendar, I'm like, well, I'm so lucky I get to do that. Like I prayed to have times like this. So anyway, it's hard, but also so good. So that's my grace and grapple. What about yours?
Oh, I think mine are very intertwined as well. I have not apartment hunted in 5 years. I have lived in this apartment for 5 years. I like moved in and I was like, it's rent stabilized. Like, I'm going to stay here until I meet my spouse. This is going to be it. And so I have just gotten so comfortable and I'm really looking forward to like, moving out and having like this force to push me to like pare down, to actually organize my stuff, all this kind of stuff. So it is a grace to like, so the grapple is finding an apartment. Chaotic.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
once I realized the people outside New York are like, oh yeah, like I'm moving to like, this place in Cincinnati in 3 months. I have my apartment already. And I was like, that is so civilized. Like, what do you mean you already have your apartment? And I'm like, okay, this one might be snatched up in the next like evening. So we have to think about if we actually want to apply for it or not. So thankfully, like, it is stressful, but the grace being like, again, like you said, prayed for times like these and also realizing like this is a uniquely difficult thing where you're like, okay, there's so many options. And once we choose something, then we get to have the freedom of having fun with it, which is so opposite what you would think because you're like, oh, like once I choose something, I'm like locked into something. It's not as much freedom, but really then it's like, oh, now you have the freedom to like imagine what color you're going to paint this room without getting your hopes up about like something that's not going to end up happening, and you get to actually like work within the limitations that you have, which I'm really looking forward to. So
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. I feel like that's like kind of an analogy for like the spiritual life and like structure actually gives us so much freedom and ability to dream. So I love that. And so exciting to be, dreaming up where you're going to be next. And any of our listeners that are New York based know how insane it is to find an apartment. It's craziness. So, just kind of a basic overview of your work, your story. I'm a little familiar with it, but for listeners who are not as familiar with it, tell us about Litany. Tell us how you started Litany and just kind of a little bit of background on where you got to where you are now.
So Litany kind of began as like a bit of a brainchild in college. My co-founder was going to Parsons New School for Design, I was going to FIT, and we met through like the women's group at the Catholic Center at NYU. And we had been like, we probably would be friends if it weren't for like our love of Jesus, because they're rival schools. Like, I don't think they do this anymore, but they used to have, instead of like a homecoming game, over the summer, students from each school would prepare a collection, and then they would have like a fashion show. And so
Like a fashion off.
exactly. And so
I love that.
we were like, joking that we were like complete rivals, but the ways that our brains worked and the ways that our education worked really complemented each other very well. Parsons is very conceptual. FIT is very like tactile, fit. I knew how to make a pair of pants within the first semester if I didn't already. You had to sew to get into the program. Whereas Parsons, it was like you had this whole year of like color theory and like design ideas and all this kind of stuff. And so that really like fit well with our personalities and fit well with like mixing with each other. But we kind of thought about it. I want to say, like, I remember senior year, we thought of the actual name. We were just like offhand joking around about it. We were like, if we ever started a company, we could call it like Litany, like the Litany of Saints. We could name like this blouse after Saint Bernadette and like this one after that. And then it would be like a litany of clothing. We were like, ha ha ha. And then we were like, actually, wait, write that down. Like,
Write that down.
Right now. And so we both like, obviously we loved what we were doing. I was studying fashion design, entrepreneurship for the fashion design industries for my bachelor's with FIT. So I got my associates in fashion design, and then you continue on. And in the next 2 years, you can get your bachelor's. You can keep in design, you can go into something else. And then Olivia, my co-founder, she was continuing in her bachelor's in fashion design, which just was one whole program at Parsons. And she had to do a capstone course to, graduate. And she did it inspired by the Sorrowful Mysteries. And she would come into the Catholic Center weeping at least once a month with one of her professors saying something like, this is too niche. Who on earth is going to buy this? Like, you need to, show a little bit more skin. You need to be like more palatable. So what consumer is going to want this kind of thing? And then they would have, industry professionals come in once a month to the class. And the grace was every single industry professional would look at her work and be like, this is really something. And she even had one professor say, or not professor, like, industry professional say, really need to be careful with the body, with this kind of inspiration. Like, you really need to be reverent about the body of the wearer, because that is so tied to what your inspiration is. And she was like, okay. So like every time she had like this, like overwhelm of emotions and stuff, God would give her someone who was like, you're on the right path. She had her, like, I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it again. Like she had her final critique. She had written this poem, and she had it on the back of one of the jackets. She had it embroidered on the back of the jacket. And it was just about like her prayer in creating this, and her like kind of what she meditates on with Christ's passion. And she read the poem, and one of her professors was like, I don't really think we can add anything to that. And that was it. That was like her whole critique. And she was like, either it went great or I absolutely bombed. I don't know, but it went great. Like, after months and months of giving her such a hard time, they saw the fruits of it, and it was so good. And she even had she had another part, they had to do something interactive with their work. And so she would sit in the back of the chapel at the Catholic Center, and she would embroider what she was praying about. And she invited different people to come and do that. So there were people who people who were like total jocks who had never picked up a needle and thread in their life. And they were like, okay, cool. Like, I guess I'll learn how to do like a French knot. And they were like, and so she had this whole like swath of fabric with different people's prayers on it. And they would embroider in adoration with her. And so it just came together so beautifully. And, when we graduated, she worked in production at Zach Posen. I was working for a hijab company. So we both were working just in the industry. And then I got let go from that job. And right after Zach Posen got sold, and they let everyone go. And so she was like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to enter religious life. At this point, she knew she was going to become a Dominican. She was like, I have a year left before I enter. Like, do I get another job and basically like lie? And I'm like, I'm really into this work. Like, I really want to be like, a lifelong employee, but I know I'm going to leave in a year, or do I like nanny more and just make money that way? And then I was like, remember that like business plan I did as my capstone for like Litany, that like thing we kind of talked about? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, what if, And so she went home for Christmas with the business plan. We both prayed about it, and she came back and she was like, okay, let's do it. And we had like, less than a year before she entered religious life. We made it an LLC in January. And then we were like, COVID hit. And we were like, okay, so we're going to go home. She's going to go home to Arizona for 2 weeks. We'll kind of like both sketch. And then like when she comes back, we'll like, start designing. And then she just didn't come back for a very long time because everything got shut down. So we were like designing the first collection over video call, and which was honestly like very helpful because it created an environment where I knew what it was like to work with creatives who I was not physically in the same space with, which has been so helpful with Litany because there are so many Catholic creatives who I want to work with where they're not physically in New York, or they're here and then they're traveling and giving talks or whatever. And this made it really reasonable to do that and like doable. I knew how to do it. So she came and lived with me for a month before entering religious life. All of her stuff was in boxes in my apartment because we were like, you don't have to use a storage unit. It's fine. And then we'd be like, oh my gosh, there is no hallway. Like, and we were joking that like this was the best like marriage and community life prep either of us were ever going to get. Because we were like, we basically have like, I was like, we basically have a baby together. Like we are financially intertwined. I had a full-size bed we were sleeping in every night. We would like watch our little TV show and cook dinner together. And like, I was like, this is what it feels like to be sharing a life with someone in a really like close way. And I'm just so grateful for that month because it was such a gift of herself to be like, I could just enjoy New York for the last year before I entered religious life. I could have no responsibilities. I could be catching up with friends all the time. Like people want to hang out with you before you enter religious life. They will get you a drink. They will buy you lunch. Like she could have just been like a little socialite for the year. And she was like, this is important though. Like this is something worthwhile. And I would have been too scared to start it on my own. I was 22, I think. I would have been too terrified. So having like her companionship in that really made such a difference. And yeah, so she was entering in October of 2020. So we put out our first collection, I think in September. So we did like we designed it together, we sewed it together, we did the photo shoot together. I pulled my first and only ever all-nighter. I slept for 1 hour and that was a bad idea. I woke up and I was like, I don't know how to put on shorts. Like, how do I put on shorts? I can't remember how to exist. We slept for 15 hours after the photo shoot, but it was just such a lovely experience. And it was my first experience too of working with models who were in this industry that is oftentimes just so utilitarian towards them. And to be working with people who our hair and makeup artist is Christian, like working with her, and we just found her because we loved her work. Working with her, she's like having deep conversations with people while they're in the makeup chair, and like seeing these models' faces like light up, them becoming like more joyful throughout the day. It just really cemented that like this is a mission, not just in what we put out, but truly like the whole process of making it. And yeah, and so now she's Sister Maria Dominique, and she's like an hour north of New York, and she prays for us. And I'm just so grateful for her sacrifice and her gift in that way.
Wow. Thank you so much for every single word of that, because like I mentioned, I was like familiar with the story, but had not heard you share it in like the timeline arc. And like, wow, that's so beautiful. And it's like God was clearly like pulling all the little strings to make sure that it worked out in such an intentional and like it sounds like such a delightful way for you and her, in a way that was like such a beautiful gift for both of you, and it will serve you both in your vocations in such different ways. And then just the ripple effect of the fashion industry, like any woman, I think, like especially a Catholic woman, like we're so drawn to beauty, we're drawn to fashion, we're drawn to this industry, and yet in many ways it is the wounds and kind of the negative effects of that industry have like hurt all of us too. So it's like it is so beautiful to see the way that Litany has kind of been like this pivot for the creatives involved in the way that it is so healing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious, kind of just you mentioned that you had worked at like the hijab company before, and these environments are not explicitly Catholic, but now you get to be explicitly Catholic. But also, I mean, your designs are worn secularly, right? So I'm curious kind of how your faith shaped your vision as a founder or co-founder, and kind of how it guides both your design and then like the business side of things?
I think so. One thing that I found very helpful with having worked for a hijab company is I learned what it was like to create something for a religious woman whose fashion was deeply intertwined with her faith in a way that was not exclusionary of others. And what does it look like to like feed people's faith without using it to sell a product, if that makes sense? Even though you're providing a service, a good to people, like you want to be very, very careful not to be just peddling wares at the expense of your faith, and that line I think would have been much more difficult to like learn if I didn't see another founder do it first. My old boss, Melanie, is like incredible with this. And I I think also like I just would have been too nervous. I would have like really held back on the faith stuff because I would have been so nervous about using it to sell something. And so seeing like other people do that really helped me a lot. And then I think like there were a couple of things. We were very firm with ourselves about garments need to be ethically made. Like we cannot call ourselves a Catholic brand if that's not happening. If it means we make less money, if it means we make less collections, if it means we make, we can't use like a gold print. We have to go to yellow because the gold print is going to like, be bad for the environment. Like that's a decision we have to make. And that is the priority over how pretty something is basically, or how like affordable it is. Then we were like, okay, also we don't want this to become something that's like the cool, rich Catholic girl gets this. And we sell the like idea of being an aesthetic Catholic woman as a way to make money and become exclusionary. Like we didn't want it to be like, this is your part of the club now. And the club excludes other people who can't afford this, who don't have this style, whatever it might be. And so because I had worked at the hijab company, I had a lot of experience doing like designs for prints on scarves. And I was like, you know what? Let's just not just throw on it, but like, honestly, yeah, like let's throw the Our Lady of Lourdes print in our collection onto a scarf. Like we have all these friends from college who want to support us, who just got out of college. Like they can't buy like a $200 dress. Like we can't afford a $200 dress right now. And so we were like, let's find a way to like create something that people can still wear that is going to like fit within a variety of budgets basically. And then that became our bestseller. So that wasn't even part of the original business plan, which is insane to me. And it's just what provides like, I think similarly to a lot of like Coach or whatever, they have their big, really really creative designs, but then they have the like tried and true bags and perfume that people are like, yes, I know that's going to last. I know I'm going to love it. I'm going to grab that. And that's what provides like almost like the bread and butter that makes the creative process manageable and doable. And then that creative process feeds creating scarves on our end, like for our company, like, because I think if we were just like, we have to make Catholic scarves, we would get very stale very quickly. But having this other side of the business that is related to like made to measure garments that are made for each woman, that are inspired by our prayer life, where we go through the whole design process every year, that makes it so that we have that like kind of creative juices flowing for making a scarf, so that it's not just like, all right, well, I guess we got to make a St. Zelly scarf, but I don't know what we should do. Like, let's slap a quote on there and call it a day, like let these saints walk with me, like what am I learning from them? And also like letting our spiritual life guide the design process too, which is, again, not what a lot of like angel investors would want to hear, because it's like, you can't be like, oh yeah, like we don't know what our collection 5 years out is going to be. And they'd be like, well, do trend forecasting, do this, do that. And it's like, no, like it has to be human. And this is really intertwined with where God is leading us in our own personal lives. And that's where all the creativity flows from. So our most recent collection was inspired by the precious blood and the Garden of Gethsemane. And that wouldn't have happened if I was just like, okay, what's happening in the Catholic world and what's happening in the fashion world? And let me make sure that I like smush those two things together. Of course, it is incredibly vulnerable, though, to be designing around your own spiritual life, too, because, you do kind of worry about excluding people when you're like, hey, yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about blood the past year. Like, this can really weird people out, But I think that like the fruits of it are apparent as well in connecting with people and creating something that's not just a garment to put on your body, but something that truly like does nurture your soul, whether or not you're going to be whether or not you're into the kind of stuff we sell and you want to buy it or not, you can still like receive the fruits of the design process and the prayer that's involved with that.
Yes, 100%. And I think too, like, I'm sure that there are moments where, it can feel like, oh, well, it'll just be simpler to follow, like, okay, last year it was Jubilee year, hope, themes, hope, perfect. Everyone's going to go to the Vatican and everyone's on pilgrimage. Great. That would be so easy. But in actually allowing all the designs to be influenced by your prayer life, then like the women that are purchasing those beautiful designs and those scarves, like you can just feel that authenticity and that intentionality. And it's not just a Catholic product and it's not just a way to be in the club. It's something that is like truly a piece of art. And clearly, God has taken care of the rest. Like, God will make sure, like, if you are really meditating on the precious blood, all the Catholic girls are going to want to have something inspired by that. Like, and that's just we give the credit to the Lord for that, right? But it's beautiful, beautiful to see the way that it all like connects.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, as someone who is building this business and is creating in New York City, right? For listeners who we have many parents, many moms who have, their side hustle businesses and they're moms and they're working moms full time. This is just the city of doing a million things all at once and being creative while also being in your vocation. What has been kind of like a very rewarding moment and then also like a big challenge moment that has kind of marked your journey with Litany?
Ooh. I would say a challenge would be, because we are so firm about the values we have, we've had to like, if a supplier starts, you know, gets bought out by a wholesaler and suddenly their minimums go up and we're not going to switch to wholesale just because this is our supplier, like we're like, no, we do made to measure. So now we have to find someone new. I think that's been the most difficult thing because we've kind of carved out this niche. There is not really a path forward except for the one that we're like getting like a pickaxe and like going through, like, and so it's been difficult in the sense that like you can feel like you're putting out fires, or you're like tending to all these little fires all over the place. But the reward of it being that to be able to say, I'm really proud of what we're doing and I stand behind it, and to be able to say like, it's really important to me to collaborate with people who I feel really do see my faith as a relationship with God and a faith and not something just to use to sell products, I think that that's been probably the best part of that. I mean, it's again kind of intertwined, like the grace and the grapple, where it's like,
Yeah.
you want to be true to what you set out to do. And that does come with sacrifices. And sometimes you don't know what those sacrifices are going to be. I imagine a lot of parents feel this way too, where like, you're like, I'm going to have a kid. It's going to be great. We're going to live in New York City. They're going to be on their little strollers. And then the kid's like running away on the stroller. And you're like, wait, I'm the back. Like, what do you do? Like, and just like a whole other world. And I think, I mean, I babysit quite a bit and I've experienced that with parents where it's like, I think people are talking about more now how to raise kids in New York, but like, it's a totally different animal. Like, and to then be doing it as a Catholic too, it's very clear to you how you want to raise your kids, the values you want to have for them. And there are you have to kind of think consistently, it seems, look through what the city offers you as a family and find what actually aligns with your values that you're putting through for your kids. And so I think it involves a lot more emotional presence, which takes a lot of energy. And I mean, obviously, having not been a mom myself, I can't exactly speak to that. But like, I see parents doing it here, and I'm like, teach me your ways. Like, I feel like if I had the skills that you've gotten through doing this, that you've nurtured through doing this, like, you really, I think, have so much to give to the world and to yourself when you like really kind of, again, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you refined yourself in this fire. Like it's
Mhm, mhm.
intense. This is not something that you like see on cute Catholic mommy blogs, and yet this is what you're doing. And the skills that you have, the effort it takes to be present to your spiritual life as a parent in New York City, who's also working, who's creative, all these kinds of things, that is going to serve you and your future family so, so well. And whoever you come into contact with at work, creatively, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. I mean, I cannot imagine parenting in New York City. It's like it seems like parenting boot camp, like all the things that are hard about being a parent, especially little ones, it just
Uh-huh.
amplifies times a million. And yet, I mean, I get to witness like our parents at our schools do it somehow so gracefully, and they're working sometimes multiple jobs, and they're like somehow on the PTA and
Yeah.
bringing teachers. I'm like, where do you get the time in your day? Again, I'm like, how should I,
Well, I
feel
feel like,
busy? I don't
yeah,
even know.
yes. And I feel like so much of it too is like momentum. And I think that that's definitely been present in my experience with like running Litany, with starting it. And I'm sure with whatever life brings my way or God brings my way in my life, like the experience I've been having recently is like, I wish I could just pause time and take it in. Like, I really wish that I could just pause, look around me, sit with it, and then be like, okay, and play, and now I'm moving forward and now I'm like ready to, I really thought about it. I've journaled about it. Like, I feel really connected with this, with everything that's going on around me. And instead it's like, oh, okay, we're finding an apartment. Okay, whoa, we're doing this. Oh, wait, okay, we actually need to print out our invitations. Okay, I'm gonna go over here and do this. Oh, I am making like this scarf right now, so I gotta find time to do that. I can't keep putting that on the back burner just because I like doing it. Like it is a job, so I'm running over here, and then it's like, oh wait, I have to send out some orders, and you just feel like all over the place all at once. But I've been kind of sitting recently with kind of or trying to like give it to God that like the purpose of our life on this side of eternity is not to feel completely present to everything all at once. I think we desire that because we know we're called to eternity, because we know that that's like being close to God in eternity is being a part of that, like just outside of time vision of everything and feeling completely at peace. And that's just not possible on this side of eternity. Like you can try to make it possible, and I think there are ways to kind of help the people around you, watch your friend's kids for her so that she can go get an hour in adoration, something like that. But the the calling we have, I think oftentimes will feel chaotic. And I think that that's also okay. I think trusting God to carry us through the chaos is important. And one day when we're, God willing, super duper old and like, not able to walk around anymore, we can think about it then, and then when we're in eternity, hopefully with God, we can think about it then, and that'll be the time to reflect on all that. But right now it's like momentum. And even when it's overwhelming, like God is carrying us through that.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. So insightful. And I think like not only does that speak to I have to I mean, again, I'm not a mom, but have also nannied and worked with kids for years and years. And I'm so privileged to get to visit all of our schools and see the kiddos and the families. And not only does that speak to parenthood, but also to any vocation. And I think anyone who is parenting and working and creating in New York City is probably being called to chaos in a way that is like God calls some of us to maybe homestead in, you know, Missouri,
Yeah.
and some of us are called to work in New York, and he knows exactly what our hearts are made for. So it's chaotic, but it's beautiful chaos. And you speak so beautifully to that. A slight pivot, just because I'm
Mhm.
curious, in terms of your fashion expertise and experience, and also connecting to faith. One thing that I have always loved about, in general, being a woman, and then just being, I've loved fashion, and I grew up with piles and piles of teen Vogue, right? And I
Oh my God,
loved
yes.
the way that fashion and style can almost be this unspoken evangelization tool within women. And I know just from friends I've shared this in mom groups, like that can be a way that as a first-time mom, you want to make mom friends. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this baby. Like, how am I going to talk? I don't know. What do we have in common, right? A very easy thing to latch onto as women is, oh my gosh, I love your sweater. That's so beautiful, right?
Yep.
And then you can talk about the sweater. Then you can talk about like where you live, where you like got the sweater. And then it, I have had deep friendships that come out of us complimenting each other. One of my really good friends who was on the podcast, Isabella, she came up to me after mass and said, I love your sweater. That's so cute. And then we started chatting and she just spent the weekend with me, right? So it's
Oh, I
like,
love that.
but that is because like God uses our interests and our passions and the beauty, our taste to connect us. It's so cool. But
Mhm.
how do you kind of see you have this beautiful front row seat to the connection of fashion and faith? How do you see that as an evangelization tool? And do you have any stories of evangelization through Litany?
Well, someone did see someone wearing one of our scarves on the subway, and that was like an absolute like baller life moment for me. I was like, I didn't even realize I had this like goal in my mind. I was like, did you talk to them? And she was like, no. And I was like, okay, amazing. Like, I'm like,
No problem.
there are people out there who I don't know. Like the first time we got an order from someone who I'd never met before, I was like, we were like going on Facebook. We were like looking. We were like, we've got to know her somehow. And we were like, we don't. Like we genuinely don't know her. And that was just like such a moving moment, I think, because I think with fashion, whether you're creating something artistically or you're choosing what you're putting on your body, like you're making choices. And I think that oftentimes that's why, like you said, some of the deepest conversations, the deepest friendships can come out of being like, I love your top, because you're not just saying, hey, I like your top. You're saying, I want to get to know you better. And I think you made a great choice. I like the choice that you made with that. And knowing that people like our choices, I think, when it's someone who we admire, we're like, or even just like a little bit, we're like, okay, you're not, I like your style too. You have like you telling me that my choice makes sense, is beautiful, you're drawn to it, really makes me feel more confident in my choice now. And so then you're like kind of bouncing off each other. You gain more confidence in your choices. And I think that the sometimes with having a crazy life. I mean, my mom had my siblings when I was in high school. So I feel like I also got a front row seat to like early motherhood and fashion, and the difference that she, especially when she was pregnant with my brother, the difference when she got good fitting maternity clothes was phenomenal. Like she just felt so much more confident. She carried herself like with so much more confidence. And then she showed up to the people around her as her full self, which I think is something that clothing allows us to do. You can wear anything and feel your most confident. And, you can wear a paper bag and be like, I'm going to show up today and I'm going to evangelize. And also the communication, I think, between ourselves and our self-confidence, our self-concept. Clothing is a really great kind of place to kind of like create that bridge there where we're like, this is the person I long to be. This is the person I know deep down that I'm capable of being and that I have the desire to be, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel like maybe it's too risky to try that hairstyle. Maybe it's, too much to try to wear a pair of pants that make me look that tall, and then you're like, okay, but I'm going to give it a little shot. I'm going to try it. And so I think that self-confidence and everything, because God wants us to be confident in ourselves, because that's being confident in his choice. We're being confident in the fact that he chose to create us and keeps us in being, and that's good. Like, and that creates like this closer relationship with Christ. Yeah. And then so I think there's such a beauty of like, I wear a miraculous medal most days. Like I have a crucifix ring from my dad, and people notice it and comment on it. We talk about it and stuff. And also like you said, sometimes it's just the human interaction. And then someone comes deeper into a conversation with us and is like, oh, like I had a classmate who was, I think he was raised Jewish. He wasn't observant anymore, but was like in the middle of class, our professor was like, okay, cool. Now you got to go get more fabric for this next thing. And we were like, oh, we got to go get more fabric. And so we were like, okay, I guess we'll go across the street and get more fabric. And he was like, I want to have a cigarette. Will you sit with me? And I was like, at the time I was just like, this golf thing, I'm not sitting. And I was like, okay, for you, sure. I'll sit with you while you have a cigarette. And he was like, what does it feel like to know that God loves you? And I was like, and it just like developed. It wasn't like I had like a big like mic drop moment in that one conversation. I honestly was so like bowled over that I don't think I gave a good explanation really, but it created an opportunity to have these conversations more often. And it was all just because I would be late. Late at FIT is like, you're not 15 minutes early, you know. I would be late for class in the morning because Father's homily weren't too long and I went to daily mass. And so they'd be like, Veronica, what are you doing? Like the professor's going to be here in like 5 minutes. And I'd be like, I know, I'm sorry. Like I was at church. And they're like, you can go to church in the morning on a weekday? What do you mean? And it would become a conversation. But because there was already that basis of, hey, I like your top. Hey, I think you make cute choices. I like being friendly with you. You kind of get to get over that hump of whatever experiences someone has had with religion that have harmed them. Suddenly you've become a safer person. And you can kind of be a part of them being able to ask those kinds of questions. And I think that that's really, yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's like such a gift, that story. And I think it really speaks to how God really does use something as simple. We think of it as simple, but it is deep. It's meaningful. It's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
God really will use those choices of what we put on our bodies to allow us to grow closer to others in faith. It's beautiful. I loved what you said about your mom finding the right pair of maternity pants and like it transformed everything. I think whether you are a woman that is going through pregnancy or just a woman that like I know like whether it's like my weight has shifted or whatever, when you find something that fits your body in the right way, it's transformational. You feel like a new person. It's like that new haircut feeling where you're like, well, I'm making plans tonight. Like everything's back to normal now.
I'm making plans now. You're like, I have blowout confidence right now. Like right. I need to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know something that I've heard moms and friends of moms say is that it's so hard to lean into personal style when you're in all the stages of pregnancy, postpartum, and then in between, maybe you have a toddler and then you want to have another little one, all those different phases. How would you recommend if you're going to give practical advice from, your fashion experience? How would you kind of give advice to a mom who was like, I want to lean into this personal style that I had when I was, in my earlier 20s or before I started having kids, but I don't even know what to do. I'm changing sizes all the time. How do I start? What would you say?
I would say first thing is community. I think one of the best things about faith communities is you get people in such different life moments who maybe, like being a single person and babysitting for families who the parents were in their 40s and they were faithful Catholics, and getting to see kind of just by being around them what this would be like and the kinds of virtues I would have to cultivate. That proximity, like I think about it as like, if you don't fit clothes anymore, maybe another woman at church has similar style to you. Maybe she'd want to borrow it for a while. It doesn't mean it's never coming back to you. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the scary thing too with clothing. I think obviously we're much more attached to our clothes when babies are, but I know a lot of my friends will kind of do the like baby basket thing where they're like, okay, here are all the 12-month clothes. Like, they're like, I don't need them right now. I don't have a 12-month. I will need them again in, a little while, but right now you use them. And I think having that kind of like, it can be official, it can just be a friendly thing, but I honestly would love to see like women do an official like clothing swap kind of thing amongst like different phases of life, And then I think that would be for like things that, do change. And then I think for things that don't, like, that is, I think, a place where as your body is changing, where you can kind of lean into accessories more. So if you're a nursing
A
mom,
litany scarf.
there you go, a litany scarf. If you're a nursing mom, though, you're not going to want to have like your good pair of earrings anymore on because the baby's going to be playing with them, scared that you're going to lose your earring back and your earring and you're never going to see it again, you know? And so I think like thinking about your garments as not just accessories are only jewelry, only, like you said, scarves, but like shoes. You wear shoes every day. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're going to be needing flat shoes now. Maybe you're not comfortable wearing your heels anymore, but like, is there some kind of way, like, maybe you can put a couple of fun pins on your shoes or like some grommets or something. You can change the laces on them to a bright color, like that, to really kind of think more outside of the box in terms of what's everything that I'm wearing right now. How I'm also doing my hair, the kind of perfume that I'm enjoying every day. And I got an electric toothbrush recently. I know that that's not like fashion, but like it changed the way that I like enjoy getting ready for bed and getting ready in the morning. It's more like calming and it's like just a little treat, you know, I'm like, oh, it's pink and I have a little pink, you know, toothbrush. And it does, I think, kind of create this environment around you where the things that you can have an impact with, to really take advantage of those. And if it's like, if you want to have like, I know a lot of moms will have like nursing covers, get something that's really colorful and fun, something that you really enjoy. That made such a huge difference for my mom. She had like a blue one with black and white flowers on it and she loved it. And it's like, then she got to like pick her outfit that like complemented it and stuff. And she felt like herself. She didn't feel like, okay, now I got to schlub around this nursing cover, you know? I think she even had like a teething necklace. Like it was like a little, like it was like a rubber thing, but it looked like a jade, like rock on like a pendant. And it looked so chic and cool. And my brother could chew on it like all day long. It was like good for him to chew on, you know?
Oh, that's amazing. I love these ideas. And I think it's, first of all, I think that the clothing swap, like we need to have more clothing swaps, not just with baby
Oh,
onesies,
I know.
but just the concept of leaning into accessories as a way to find some sense of personal style when everything else is changing. I mean, I'm like a huge, it's like classic New York person, but like black, you know, fitted shirt and different washes of jeans. And then I'll like switch out the blazer, the
Yep.
accessories or whatever to go with it. But I think that's such a good way to still be creative with fashion, but it's not so reliant on can I fit
Yeah.
into something or do I feel comfortable nursing in something or doing drop off and pick up in something. So
Mhm.
those are incredible. Thank you so much. As we sort of wrap up the podcast, we always end with some really fun rapid fire
Ooh, love it.
questions. So there's like some this or that. There's just some that are sort of off the top of your head. And it's just kind of a way for listeners to get to know a little bit more about you outside of Litany in your work.
Mhm.
So we can jump right in.
Let's go.
I'm
Do it.
curious if you have a favorite saint right now that is inspiring your creativity.
I'm gonna be very basic right now and say Saint Zelly. I'm just like, I
I
mean, I'll just lay it all out there. I've been like, should I be like a little secretive and demure about this? No, like I'm doing a scarf inspired by her right now. And so I'm like researching lace and stuff. And my fiance and I have like asked for her and St. Louis' intercession throughout the course of our relationship. And it hasn't been that big of a thing. It hasn't been like, oh, I'm gonna learn all about them. But now suddenly I'm seeing the fruits of that, which is really, really beautiful.
love that. I am a Saint Therese girl through and through. And so of course I also love Saint
Yeah.
Zoe so much. And I'm like, can't wait to see what this scarf looks like. Okay, next would be a piece that you've recently thrifted or created or purchased that you're excited to style. Anything that's sort of like glowing at you when you open your closet.
Ooh, I found an old fossil big bag on Depop. It was $50. I got it down to 40 because there's like a big like ring on the back. I'm like, no one's looking at the back. That's against my body. I don't even care. It's like this gorgeous, rich brown leather, and it's got like the little clasp on the top. I can fit a laptop in it. I've never been able to fit a laptop in a purse, and just being able to grab one bag and go is so freeing. I'm like a whole new woman. I love it so much.
Obsessed. There's something so freeing about becoming a tote bag woman. And
Mhm.
I also feel like I'm kind of like living in my early thousands childhood fantasy of like,
Yes.
I'm going to be a girl that wears heels and has a work
Yes,
bag,
I got my work bag. I'm going with my coffee and yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
but like vintage fossil work
I
bag.
know.
That's incredible.
That's a little Holy Spirit like thing. God was just like, I know you're stressed. Here you go. You can have a little cute something.
For sure. Amazing. Okay. Do you prefer morning mass or evening mass?
Morning math.
Morning. So you're a morning person.
No. It'll get
Heard
me out of bed. It's one of the very few things that will get me out of bed is morning mass.
the
So
Eucharist. The Eucharist
yeah.
will do that. I love it.
Mhm.
Do you have a dream artist or celebrity, Catholic or not, for you to spot wearing a litany design?
Zendaya, hands down.
Tagging Zendaya in this right now. Zendaya, you need to wear litany. She'd wear it beautifully.
No.
A book, an artist, or a Catholic, speaker or writer who's inspiring you lately?
There is a saint named Saint Peter Julian Aidmar. I think he was a French saint. I have a book of his homilies on the Eucharist. Highly recommend. It is just like so rich. It's personal. It's like full of like things to learn about Christ in the Eucharist, but it's not like very intellectually heavy. It feels like an enjoyable read, but I really get a lot out of it. Yeah.
I want to read that now. Oh
It's
my
so good. I
goodness.
can lend it to you if you want.
Okay, amazing. Wow. Okay, Veronica, thank you so much for all of the beautiful insight that you shared, your practical advice, your beautiful anecdotes, for sharing so vulnerably your story of founding Litany. I will make sure that all of our listeners in our show notes will be able to access links to view the litany designs and to purchase them, and links to your social media so that they can just support you in all the different ways. It has just been such a treat to have you on. We're so blessed by you being on Nazareth, and thank you so much.
Thank you. My cheeks hurt from smiling. So thank you so much for such a lovely time.
Sign of a good time for sure.